Thank you for. I did fine, thank you. I got my committee meeting wrapped up, so.
All of the meeting to order.
Yes. Commissioner Diana?
Here.
Commissioner Harp?
Here.
Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Commissioner Silvas?
Here.
Commissioner Womack?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. So the first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from the October 28th meeting. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Patty. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Alex. Any discussion or changes or corrections to the minutes of October 28th? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes from our October 28th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So the ayes have it, and the minutes of our October 28th meeting are approved. Were there any additions to our agenda for this evening?
There are not.
Okay. Is there any public input?
Chad, would you like to say anything?
You want me to come up and say a few words about Habitat?
We
If
can-
you'd like.
Usually I do, I mean, I won't be long.
Yeah, thank you, Chad, and then introduce yourself when you are at the mic.
Chad Hoffman, Executive Director at Habitat for Humanity. We apply for the CHODO funds every year. It is important to us for building affordable housing in our community. All of our homeowners live or work in our community and have to put in 300 hours of service to be part of our program, but then it's a pretty intense financial education program that we put our homeowners through too. And then we build a house, usually from selection to their house being built takes about a year and a half to 2 years. And excited that we'll be building 5 houses throughout Champaign-Urbana this year.
Any general questions for Chad while he's at the mic?
I would propose that we save that for the
Okay.
item discussion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
So presentations for this evening?
Yes, so, sorry, I skipped ahead. No presentations.
Okay, so then we go to the staff report.
Yep, so to start off with, we have a few welcomes to make. First, we have Rachel Harp, our newest commissioner, who is joining us for her first meeting tonight. I believe at our last meeting, I announced that she'd been approved by council, but she was still doing some of the onboarding at that point. But we are very happy to have her here, so welcome, Rachel. And then next, we are excited to have our new grants specialist here with us. This is Eric McCann, coming to us most recently from Denver, Colorado. He has some experience with federal grants already, so we're excited to have him here, and we think he's going to be a great addition to the team. All right, so next, just a couple updates on our annual action plan timeline. Just as a reminder, our annual action plan, which as the name would suggest is something we do every year, is the 1-year increment of our consolidated plan. So this will be year 2 of the 2025 through 2029 consolidated plan period. That consolidated plan was approved last year, and we are currently in the first year of that period. So we are getting started on drafting the next annual action plan. We are hoping to have an initial draft published towards the end of February and beginning a comment period around the same time. Per our citizen participation plan, we're required to have a 30-day comment period for all of our action plans. So we are tentatively planning on having a public hearing coinciding with the Community Development Commission's February meeting. And then assuming we stick to that timeline, we would bring the plan back for a recommendation from the commission in March. Next, an update on the City Community Services Grant. We are going to be opening the application window for this annual social service funding opportunity through the city next week, starting on February 3rd, and that application window will go through April 6th. This is a funding opportunity for organizations that provide programs and services benefiting low-income Urbana residents across a range of eligible service categories. Information is available on the website. We put out a press release, and it's gone out through city social media, so we encourage commissioners to share that through your networks. Just a procedural note on these funds, because in previous years, the city social service funding pool included funding from CDBG. Those agreements came to commission because this year all the funds in this pot are city general funds. They are officially under the purview of City Council. So we will not be bringing those agreements to this commission this year for formal approval, but we will certainly keep you apprised of the process. One opportunity to be more involved in the process, and that you can certainly follow up with me about, we will be looking for community stakeholders to serve on the review committee for these applications. So if that's something you might be interested, please feel free to follow up with us in the grants division. And then lastly, we have a note on the point and time count. This is an annual event that is coordinated by the local continuum of service providers to the homeless. This is required by HUD-funded continuums of care, and is kind of an annual snapshot of homelessness in Champaign County, where in partnership with shelters and volunteers, we try to do our best job of going out and surveying and tracking a total of individuals who are currently experiencing homelessness in Champaign County. So that took place last Thursday. That data is still being aggregated and checking for duplicates and things like that. So no numbers to report yet. But it is an important data source that is something we look at when making decisions for our HUD funding programs. So it'll be something to keep an eye on, and we'll report back on when that data is available. So that's everything I have for the staff report, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Nick, any questions for Nick?
Regarding that data that you just mentioned, is it hosted, I imagine, on some of the websites that we have for?
Yes, so the head of the CSPH is Katie Harmon, who works for RPC, so I believe they have that data on their website. But I can follow up on that as well.
Any other questions for Nick before we move on? Okay, thank you, Nick. Is there any unfinished business before the commission for this evening?
There is not.
Okay, that takes us to new business, and we have 2 items under new business, 2 resolutions. I guess we would handle these separately. First, number 1, and then number 2.
So I will talk about them together because they're related, but then the commission can decide whether to create an omnibus or vote on them separately. I guess you'd have to make a motion to create the omnibus, so either way, it's 2 votes. But anyway, to get started, just as a quick overview, these are resolutions to certify Habitat for Humanity as a community housing development organization for this next program year, as well as an organization approving a funding agreement for affordable housing development of 5 homeowner projects. So this is through a set-aside in the HOME program. Again, we receive HOME program funds through HUD as part of the HOME Consortium, which is a collective entity that consists of the city of Urbana, the city of Champaign, and unincorporated Champaign County. So these funds can be used for projects throughout that jurisdiction. Within the HOME program, there is a set-aside for what HUD calls community housing development organizations. To summarize, a community housing development organization is a locally based organization that is a nonprofit with the capacity to develop affordable housing. There are other specifics that we look at as far as like low income representation on the organization's board, active 501c3 status, and things like that. So that's what we're looking at when we certify an organization. So these set-aside funds are kind of a use it for this specific purpose or lose it. So in addition to those development funds, we also have a set-aside that's eligible to support operating expenses for these organizations. So each year, CHODOs are required to reapply for certification. During this process, again, we review documents just to make sure that they're checking all those boxes that HUD requires to define an organization this way. So that's why you have two resolutions here for you, one to certify the organization and then one for the actual funding agreement. So for this year's funding cycle, we had an application window that opened in early December and ended in early January. Habitat for Humanity was the only organization to apply for CHODO funding this year. Habitat has regularly applied for CHODO funding over the course of the program's history. I don't have the exact number of projects we funded, but it's at least several dozen. This year, they have applied for a total of $197,500 in development funds to help build 5 projects. This would be at a rate of $37,500 per project. Project addresses are included in Exhibit A of your packet on page 9. There's also a pro forma for each project that's included in the attached funding agreement. Those are on pages 34 through 38 of the packet. 3 of these projects would be in Champaign and then 2 in Urbana. Again, just as a reminder, HOME program funds can be used throughout that HOME Consortium geography. So these would all be affordable single-family homes for sale to income-qualifying households participating in Habitat's homeownership program. In addition to these development funds, the resolution in the packet would provide Habitat with $30,000 in operating funds. These could go to things like staff salaries, training, staff benefits, and that would represent the entirety of our cap for CHODO operating costs. If recommended for approval by CDC, these resolutions would go to council for final approval before agreements could be executed. Staff are recommending approval, noting that the funding agreement would be consistent with council goals related to support for organizations developing affordable housing, as well as the budget and goals outlined in our 2025 through 2029 consolidated plan. We also just note that Habitat has a strong history of producing affordable units through the CHODO program and also complying with program regulations. So that's certainly been appreciated over the years. So that's a general overview, but I'm happy to take any questions.
I have a quick question. I'm looking at all the attachments in the exhibit about all the legal and regulatory compliance, and I'm assuming that all these terms are similar to previous years, so there's not any big changes from this year's federal administration?
Not specific to the CHODO program to date.
Okay, thanks.
I guess, so regarding some of the project funding, does Champaign also participate in this level, or is it something that?
So we coordinate with Champaign in our funding decisions and these conversations and administration of the home program. When the consortium was founded, Urbana was designated as the lead entity, which is why we have discretion as far as executing the actual funding agreements at the level of the city of Urbana.
Nick, I think in previous years, we've talked about how it really does make sense to think about homelessness and addressing that on a countywide basis, because people are homeless, they really don't have an Urbana or a Champaign address. And so the shared responsibility for that makes a lot of sense in this case. I think we haven't talked about it recently, but I know in previous years we've had that conversation. Look, why, how are the funds allocated? How are the properties selected? And it's great to have Habitat as a partner that really sees the broader geography that we want to address to think about homelessness.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I guess I would add, I see it from a different direction, and some of the things I do on the border review. One of the struggles right now with Habitat housing is where it goes in. It's generally speaking the most valuable house in the neighborhood at the highest price and the highest mortgage. And we see a lot of people currently who are Habitat home owners struggling with property taxes because the multipliers hit them harder than everyone else in the neighborhood. And especially if they are on a restricted or a fixed income, they're getting annual calls from the bank that their mortgage amount is more because of insurance, because of taxes, etc. So it's something that the border review is working on some with Habitat. We've been working on with assessors, but just to put it out there, it is a struggle, especially when you have a 10-year requirement to be there. People can sort of be stuck in something that the finances worked fine when they walked in the door, but probably everyone sitting here knows what's happened to their property taxes in the last 4 or 5 years, and you can imagine the same percentage increase can be very tough in a neighborhood where you're already valued above almost everyone else in the neighborhood. So just bringing that out and I know Habitat is looking at that and thinking about it, but I think any discussions that we can have with them and be helpful about that, et cetera, is a good thought on going in on these properties.
I didn't think about that. Thanks, Chris.
Well, that actually brings me to another question. Maybe it's more for Chad, which is, so the project funding per house is only $39,500, which suggests to me that these are very affordable small houses, and so I wouldn't expect like a big property tax kind of issue where them being the nicest ones in the block.
I'll let Chad speak to that.
So the funding is just a portion of what it cost us to build the house. This is a program that helps us, put a lot of dollars into building a high quality house that people want to remain in and stay there. I would agree that property taxes, insurance have been a burden that we are watching very closely. One thing we can do with our homeowners for sure that others can't is we'll always figure out ways to extend the loan a longer amount of time and longer time period, and it is a 0% interest mortgage with Habitat, which that's extremely affordable. So that's something that we will continue to believe strongly in and help. And typically, Chris kind of cited it, but property taxes and insurance are more in terms of escrowing a house than what a mortgage is for our homeowners. That's pretty consistent, and I think all of the last 10 to 12 have been that way. So it is a concern. We're keeping an eye on it ourselves and trying to ensure affordability for our homeowners. And we do have some pretty strict percentages we follow in terms of what our homeowners can afford. And that's one thing we have flexibility in too. If a homeowner can afford a 20-year mortgage or 22-year mortgage, we'll do that. So we do that to get them the most down payment assistance, to get them into the best programs, and make sure that it remains the lowest possible mortgage payment possible for them. And then adjust if, 2-3 years down the road, if we have to, we can extend those terms to keep it affordable.
And Patty, I do just want to clarify, you actually corrected my error. I think in my introduction I said 37,500 per project. Just for the record, you are correct. It is 39,500 per project. But I also want to note that included in the funding agreement are the pro formas at this point per project that kind of shows the breakdown. We actually, as a CHOTO program requirement, we require a pro forma for every project that's applying for funding, just so we can know that the projects that we're awarding funding to are going to come to fruition through whatever various funding stack they're working with.
And we do have homeowners selected for these 5 projects already too. So we're excited about that and looking for more partner families to have home ownership, which I think is a huge bonus to our communities as a whole.
Excuse me, Chad, did those, maybe I looked past it, do you have an estimated completion date on any of those 5?
So 2 of them will start in March of this year, and we'll have those completed in the fall of 2026. And then the other 3 will start in the summer, fall of this year and be completed in the spring of 2027.
I will also note that Exhibit C within the funding agreement, which is on page 39 of the packet, that's the little gray number in the corner. There are various other page numbers, refer to the little gray ones when I say packet number, includes a project schedule for each home.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to keep an eye on them too. So our township assessors have jointly agreed to try and treat them, maybe especially on the front end, with a particular exemption or something that would help that assessed value also. So.
Yeah, I think, as Chris pointed out, because of all the donor dollars, government funding, and just the sweat equity of our homeowners, there is a sale restriction on the house for the first 10 years of ownership. So after the full mortgage is paid, the homeowner uses that as a wealth building tool or passing on to their kids and things like that. But there is would be some difficulty selling that on the open market for the full market value within that first 10 years too.
It seems that we should act on this first resolution, certifying habitat, and then go into the execution of the agreement separately. Does that make sense? Because I think
think
we're
so.
kind of getting into more of the discussion about the organization and the, maybe we should address that and then go into the project. So is there a motion for that first number 1 resolution?
Yes, I move to approve that we take the resolution certifying a CHOTO for Urbana Home Consortium for Habitat for Humanity to move to City Council.
Thank you, Patty. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any discussion? Okay, no discussion. Let's call the vote. All in favor of approval of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. So the ayes have it, and we have approved Habitat as the organization. And now we can talk about number 2, which I think goes into the agreement. Is there any additional information on the agreement?
The agreement covers the program regulations, the project specifics. It also includes, some of the standard documents that we're going to work with over the course of the project. So like the land use restriction agreement and things like that.
And then, Chad, is there anything you want to add to the information we have about that?
Not as much as just a thank you for the support of the commission and their Urbana staff and everyone, and continuing to partner on this. It's important to add affordable housing to our community, and we appreciate this program still being available.
I would say on behalf of the commission, we appreciate a long history of good work with Habitat, so it's a good, long-lasting partnership. Any other discussion before we look at a motion for this?
I was a little curious about some of the project budgets. I mean, looking at it, I mean, so it looks like the $235,000 is the cost of like the entire project itself, right? Then what? And this is due to my lack of familiarity with Habitat and how you guys operate. What is then calculated as like part of the loan for the person who's getting the house?
Sure. Great question. So Habitat sells at the appraised price of the house to our homeowners. Typically, we've seen those in the $140,000 range as of recently. So yeah, there's a big funding gap if we were even to sell that. And remember, when we are getting the mortgage, it's a 0% interest. So we're right. And that's over 30 years. And then we take those funds and invest them back into our next house builds as well. The mortgages are part of what helps us build into the future. So it is a pay it forward program to some degree. And that's how we've expanded production. I mean, we have actually continued to increase what we've been able to build each year. So I think we were 4 with Choto last year, 5 with Choto this year. And just excited that, we're able to still make up that gap because building has become extremely expensive. I think we're up, honestly, almost 50% since COVID. So about 5-6 years, we're up significantly on our hard cost, especially lumber and things like that. And I don't think tariffs are necessarily helping us a whole lot on some of those fronts. So, yep.
Any other discussion?
I have one other question now that I'm looking at the sources of funds. So I see that for each house, there's different kinds of other organizations that are contributing to funding the project. So like the England Foundation for the one on Breslin versus Brower and Russo for Columbia. So I'm just curious that who does the fundraising for those extra funds?
Yeah, so that's one of my functions as director, but also we have a development director, one paid staff that focuses on that. But we do require a private sponsor for each house that we build, and that's typically between $60,000 and $75,000. It's going to be officially $75,000 starting in 2027. So we have a very generous and kind community. They see the transformative work we provide. And we do try to get, sometimes it's a collection of maybe an interfaith group might have a house sponsorship as well. So it does take a village to build these. But having one core sponsor is really what makes it all work. We try to be very conscious of not only our grant dollars, but our donor dollars too, to keep our cost as much in line as possible and in check. So.
Thank you.
It's a great question.
Are we ready for a motion?
All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I move that we approve the resolution to authorize the execution of the Home Consortium Choto Agreement, funding agreement for Habitat for Humanity, and move it to the City Council.
Thank you. Patty, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Any other discussion about the motions on the table? Okay, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So the ayes have it, and the motion carries. So thank you, and thank you, Chad, for providing additional information.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So is there any other new business for us?
There is not.
No other new business? So I want to just say welcome to our new members. It's great to have you. You started off with a great meeting and exposure to a good partner. And with that, we are adjourned.